How would the conversation change if it was led by young people? Equity, activism,
Justice for
education, the arts, climate change, leadership. Youth Lead Now puts young people at the center of important conversations, giving all who engage a chance to ask some of the world's most prominent leaders tough questions. It's time for young people to not just have a seat at the table, but to create their own table. So, now that you're here, ask yourself, how will you change the conversation? Youth Lead Now.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to December session of Youth Lead Now. I'm one of your co-hosts for today's session. My name is Brenda Velardi. I'm from Newark, New Jersey, and I'm a proud graduate of the Aspen Young Leadership Fellowship. I'm so excited to be back co-moderating for Youth Lead Now, and this time with an amazing guest, Nely Galán and Stedman Graham on identity leadership. The purpose of Youth Lead Now is to serve as a platform to amplify the voices of young people, bring national leaders into conversation with local communities, and to provide a source for hope and inspiration as we navigate these difficult times, and especially the winter months ahead. Mostly, we really want to bring the Aspen experience into the homes of youths, families, and educators all around the country and the world. Today, we will be exploring the topic of leadership and really unpacking what does it mean to be a leader with help from our two amazing guests. Before we begin, we want to express a huge thank you to our more than 25 community partner organizations which are joining us this month. A special shout out goes to Uncharted Learning, Crossroads Cultural Arts Center, YM Leaders Program, and Phillips Community College. We have people zooming in from Chicago, Miami, LA, St. Louis, the Delta, Louisville, and so many other cities from across the country. So thank you all for joining us today. We will have some time at the end to ask a couple of questions of Nelly and Stedman. So please make sure to submit all of your questions using the Q&A feature. Please make sure to include your name, the city, and state that you're from so I can give you a special shout out. So, without further ado, I am honored and so excited to be introducing my amazing co-moderator, Nely Galán. Nelly Galán is a self-made entrepreneur who came to this country when she was only 5 years old as a political refugee. She began her entrepreneurial life selling Avon beauty products at 12 to help her parents pay for school. While in high school, an article she wrote first got her expelled and then changed her life completely. After she was offered the youngest guest editorship in the history of 17 magazine. That internship led her to host a teen television show, after which she became the first employee of a small Spanish TV station, which we now know as Telemundo. Nelly worked her way up and became the first Latina President of Entertainment for the United States television network. She later started her own company, Galan Entertainment, producing over 700 television shows in English and Spanish. She also launched over 10 television channels all around the world from companies like HBO, ESPN, Fox, and Sony. Galan took a mid career sabbatical, completing a master's and doctorate clinical psychology, where she really focused on the psychology of money in multicultural communities. She then authored the New York Times best-selling book, Self-Made, Becoming Empowered, Self-Reliant, and Rich in Every Way. It's really about the revolution that entrepreneurship led by multicultural women and their families in the United States is, excuse me, she is committed to helping us young people understand how to build wealth and how to really think like we are the owners, even though some of us may be still working for others. Her free digital platform, Becoming Self Made, shows you how. As an added bonus, 10 lucky people attending this event will win a copy of her best selling book, Self Made. Nelly, I am honored. I'm so honored to be here with you and be co-hosting Youth Lead Now.
Brenda, I love that we're both Jersey girls. So it's so lovely to be with you and just so happy to be with all of you here today.
Thank you so much. And we have so much to talk about, but I want to start our conversation off by really discussing your journey as a leader. You have led a multi-billion-dollar company, as well as studied women who are taking on roles that place them as important and vital leaders, even if on a small scale. Why is the subject and the practice of leadership so important to you? How have you really seen it change lives?
Well, I think first of all, and I love that we're talking to Stedman because he talks about identity. And I also feel that I speak a lot about identity because it is how we see ourselves. And for me, that I'm an immigrant with Latino parents who I don't think a lot of people and a lot of even my African American friends go, why are you Latinos so quiet? And, they don't realize that sometimes we come from countries where if you speak up, you disappear. And so having these very quiet parents that are so humble and, like sometimes and this is why I was interested also in this idea of self-made, because so many people of color, maybe they clean houses or they do things that are very humble and they go, oh, I clean houses. They don't realize I'm an entrepreneur. I run a janitorial business. And I was very interested in how we see ourselves and how we name ourselves. And when I wrote the book Self-Made, it's because I really feel I see so much growth in our communities in entrepreneurship. And but also because the word self-made to me, and I tell my son this all the time, is in your life, we're living through a crisis. You're going to go through many crises. I've had many crises in my life, including leaving my country at 5. And life, to make it to the end of your life, you will have to make yourself over, DIY yourself from the inside out over and over again, and find your unique voice. Find that the pain you've gone through, find that everything you've been through is what makes you unique, and it's your winning proposition. It's the fact that I'm bilingual, bicultural. I always say I make shows in Spanish and English because I make double the money. So that's how I see it, right? 2 languages, double the money. 3 languages, triple the money. So leadership is about finding that voice and finding that what you are, that all the things that you thought were bad really are guiding you to where you're supposed to be in life.
That is so beautiful. And I really, you mentioned saying that so many of us come from backgrounds and from cultures where we're humble. We don't, we have these norms, we have these traditions. And I guess my next question is, what advice would you give to younger women that are trying to become self-made, but maybe feeling like they're being held back because of their cultural traditions, because of, the fear of leaving family, the fear of kind of spreading their wings and now, focusing on themselves. What advice would you
Well,
give?
I think that's our biggest barrier to entry because so many of us are tethered to our parents sometimes. And it's a beautiful thing because we're so loving and we have such empathy and compassion for people because we have had parents that have suffered. But like, I'll tell you what I've learned is when I was 17 years old and I was working at 17 magazine and I got offered a job in Texas to do a TV show. And I told my parents, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving to go do the show. My mother goes, you cannot leave till you get married. And I was my mother's therapist, the driver, I was already making money, and my poor parents, they really depended on me. And I said to them, if you don't let me go, I'm going to escape. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this little Chevy Chevette little car and I was going to drive myself across the country. And they both got up and first they were mad. You cannot leave. We will not allow it. And I'm going. And you guys don't get this. This is a big opportunity. And then they threw the guilt trip and they start crying hysterically. If you leave us, we're going to die. You cannot leave. That's so selfish. You cannot leave. And I said, I'm sorry, you guys, but I have to go. And I left and I drove myself cross country. And years later, I wrote this book and I tell that story in the book. And my mother said, Hija, what would we have done if you had not left that day? You have taken such good care of us. And so I want you all to think about, sometimes we don't put the oxygen mask on ourselves first. And it is so painful to leave your parents, to go and do. I've had kids tell me they don't take a scholarship to go to Harvard because they don't want to leave the parent. One of the kids that works with me told me the other day he got a scholarship to go to medical school, and he goes, I can't leave my parents in California. I can't. So I want you all to know that your parents, you love your parents, and that's the great thing about being kids of color. We love our parents, but you have to go. You have to fly. You have to be bigger so that you have something to give back to them and to your community. And that's part of your identity.
Thank you so much. And I applaud you. And you're such an amazing example, of strength, of courage, Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was absolutely amazing. And I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have ahead. So on that note, I would love to invite Stedman Graham to join us. Stedman has had a full and diverse professional journey as a businessman, an author, an educator, and a coach. Pulling from his more than 30-year career, Stedman lectures and conducts training programs for corporations and educational organizations worldwide on the topic of identity leadership, based on the philosophy that you cannot lead anyone else until you lead yourself first. Stedman, we are so thrilled to have you join us for our 4th session of Youth Lead Now. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it very much, Brenda.
Thank you. My first question to you is about the concept of identity leadership and why must one have a solid foundation for personal leadership before we can even think about helping or leading anyone else?
Well, it's what Nelly was saying. I mean, Nelly, thank you so much for sharing. And your book, Self-Made, is a great title. I haven't had the chance to read it, but I'm sure it's a great book on your story and your empowerment. Identity leadership is self-leadership. When you talk about self-leadership, you're really talking about breaking the cycle. And you're talking about breaking the cycle from a kind of a world that defines who you are based on your background, your family, your gender, your religion, your color, all of that. You're kind of breaking the shackles of information that defines you and puts you in a box and limits your ability to self-actualize your own potential. And so we live in a world where we're kind of in a fixed mindset where we're doing the same thing over and over every single day. If you did the same thing you did yesterday, as you would do today, as you would do tomorrow, what have you done? The answer is nothing. You've already done it. So you pretty much become a follower in the world that we live in, which represents about 7 billion people who are stuck doing the same thing over and over. And we're confined to kind of an ancient educational system that teaches us how to memorize and take tests and repeat the information back. We get labeled with a grade, 2 weeks later, we forget the information. So the biggest issue in breaking the cycle is that we're not learners. And in my own life, until I was able to understand how to take information and apply it to my talents and to my skills, to my purpose in life, to my identity, to what I love, and until I was able to raise my consciousness and not focus on my historical baggage and to focus on organizing resources around the world. Now we have access to technology. So to be able to utilize technology as a way to define my existence in the 24 hours that we have every single day, which makes us equal, allows me to understand that about the closest thing to freedom as I know. And that is the ability to be able to take charge of your own development and utilize knowledge and information as a way to empower yourself every single day so you can be a better person today than you were yesterday. And you can improve upon that because you practice that, you practice those skills, you practice your expertise, you become good at what you do, you create value, and the value that you give yourself is the value the world gives you. The world sees you as you see yourself. And so Nelly talked about self-image, talked about breaking the cycle of being a follower, doing the same thing over and over, going out to establish your own opportunities, really is what it's all about. And there's a process for that.
But Stedman, can I interrupt you for a second?
Process.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Because I read your book and I really loved how you spoke about your childhood, because I think And I know, like, a lot of young people look at you and me, and now we're in a different place in our life and we're successful and all of that. But, when I think back in my childhood and when I read about your childhood, we were in that same place. And I think a lot of young people today with the pandemic happening are like, what are we going to do? We're not even in school. We've lost a year. What are we going to do? And how do we change? Can you talk a little bit about your childhood? I thought that was very fascinating, and how you were kind of lost and you didn't know who you wanted to be, and you were following like the box that you were being put in.
Yeah, I was always looking for equality and kind of freedom. And I didn't understand. I had a race-based consciousness. I thought it was about the color of my skin. I grew up in a family with 2 special need brothers. So I grew up with low self-esteem, a lack of confidence in myself. I was teased constantly, bullied a lot at school, and had a lot of trauma and pain. And later on in life, I worked in the prison system for 5 years, but there's no question I would have been in prison in that system, except for one thing, and that is I had basketball. And basketball was kind of my way out. It made me feel good about myself. I became a pretty good ball player, if you let me tell it. And then I was able to later on in life, work in the prison system, play ball in Europe, serve in the U.S. Army a number of years. I went to college, got a master's degree, all of that. Met a woman named Oprah. You might have heard of her. She was a talk show host for about 25 years. And, she's a very successful person. And so I'm defined by all of these labels, race label, brothers, family labels, relationship label, all of that. And I didn't really know who I was. So Nelly, when you talked about identity is being able to define yourself as opposed to having the world define you. And so I didn't know how to do that. I was looking for that. So I created my own process because it was uncomfortable for me, because every time I walked out the door, I'm being defined by my relationship. And I had my own internal story growing up, and I was defined by that. It's a storyboard going in my head all the time. And growing up with low self-esteem, a lack of confidence, I was looking for freedom. And it took me a long time to realize that if you're looking for freedom, you'll never find it on the outside. Freedom is only on the inside. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I began the journey of discovering who I was as a person, and realized that, there's a process for finding out who you are. And when you understand who you are, you're able to understand where you're going and how you're going to get there. And so I teach that as a way to get, especially young people at an early age, to understand the value of information and how to apply it to what they love. The key word here is love. So the transformation is in your life from negative to positive is always love. And if you grow up with the foundation of your life being negative, if you're looking at the glass half empty as opposed to half full, then you'll never be able to self-actualize your potential, because you're coming from a position of negative thinking. I'm not good enough. You're focusing on what you can't do as opposed to what you can do. And so love becomes the foundation for thinking, organizing, developing, and building and creating. And that's when I began to grow in my own life, because I began to apply that to my talents, my skills, my abilities, to my purpose.
So what I read in your book is that you kind of, step one, you say that leaders and identity leaders really know themselves from the inside out. And again, a lot of times in our communities, being introspective, or like kind of going deep and digging in and saying to yourself the truth. What is it that I'm here to do? What am I really good at? Maybe I think I want to do this, but I'm really good at this. How did you figure out, and how did you start doing that? And how can you tell young people to start really, especially in this moment that kids are like, what the heck am I going to do with my life now? How do you go deep and tell and ask yourself, have these conversations with yourself and go deep?
That's a great question. And that is the key question here. It's how do you begin? I have a 9-step success process. The first step is called check your ID. It's based on, again, organizing everything you love. It's really kind of this simple. It's being able to get a piece of paper and write down everything that you love. And then, organization.
I mean, that you love to do, that you love in general.
Whatever you love to do. Whatever you can imagine that you love to do.
You do for free if you could do it.
You have to create your own life. You have to create your own future. Knowledge is power. Content is king. So it's all about the information. So if you don't read, if you're not a reader, if you're not a learner, if you don't develop yourself, if you don't, focus on organizing content and information, and we're in the information age. So you couldn't be in a better position now because you have access to an iPhone and you got access to information. The challenge is the key is to be able to apply that information to who you are. So if you can organize all the things you're passionate about, all the things that you love to do, begin to organize information specifically around those things that you love to do and that you have a passion for, then you can begin to build it and you can create and design your own future. And then you just work on that and you practice that and you become that. And that's how you begin to self-actualize your potential. The second step, of course, is you got to have a vision, and your vision has to be bigger than your circumstances. Then you have to have a plan. You got to write it down. You got to organize it. You got to use both sides of the brain. So it's an organizational process of focusing on internal development based on what you love.
So it's a plan because a plan with no action is nothing at all. So it's the plan and then the action.
Yeah, you need first to figure out what you're working on. Mm-hmm. So you need a foundation for organizing information so you can use your thinking power. So you can begin to think about how to sort out the information. There's a lot of information, but a lot of times we get bad information. Mm-hmm. So you want to get the information that's relevant to making you happy so that you can build the core of who you are. You can keep going back to the core based on your purpose in life, based on what you really should be doing, based on what makes you happy. And then creating a vision about who you can become. I could care less about who you are. I'm only concerned about who you can be. What is possible for you in the greatest country in the world? What is possible for you with access to technology and information? What's possible for you based on resources and opportunities? And so we create those things. Nobody's going to give you that. And then the third step is you have to lay it out on a piece of paper because we have 50,000 thoughts a day going through our head. What we need to do is be able to organize all of that information so that information is relevant to our development so we can develop a process for building, designing, and creating our own future.
Brenda, are you getting all this?
Definitely. I have it all written down. I have the book right here. I'm definitely going to read it and take the time to really understand what's going on inside. And I think something that would really help young people understand how to take that first step is, Mr. Stedman, can we hear what was your aha moment, the moment of realization, I need to do the work for myself first and work on myself and self-love and all of this before I can go out and teach this, before I can go out and lead other people?
Well, the key is that the thing that really kind of changed my paradigm, changed my thinking, is realizing that the process of success is the same for everybody. Doesn't make a difference who you are, where you're from, what you look like. And the difference is some people know it and some people don't. And you may have access to great information. You may have a great school. You still are going to school, kind of doing the same thing over and over. You get a degree, you come out, and now you can't find a job. Well, 30 years ago, we didn't have to worry about that because there were lots of jobs. Now you have to be a thinker. You have to be a developer. You have to be a designer of your own future. This is the you economy, which is why when you talk about self-leadership, and Nelly, you talked about being a self-made person, you have to self-make your own self based on your skills, your passions, and your ability. And so to be able to organize that and understand that, okay, I'm no different than anybody else. So if Oprah did this or Michael Jordan did this, she did it in communications and she created her own. Then she leveraged a magazine and then she leveraged that into a network. Michael Jordan did it in basketball, and now that he loved that, he's passionate about that. And now he's able to own his own team. And so what you want to do is organize your own career path around what makes you happy. What do you love to do? And the first step, finding your own purpose, finding what you care about, finding what you would do that you would do for the rest of your life, and really not worry about how much money you're going to make, but you just love to do it and you become the best at it. The money's going to come to you based on that.
But so I think one of the things I also hear you say though is, because so many young people in our communities think, you know, they see an athlete or they see a celebrity or whatever, and they don't always see people of color in other areas. And you know, you're a really good example too, because here you were an athlete, but it's also athletics isn't forever. So you had to switch gears. And sometimes we either don't have a vision for our lives, or we have grandiose visions that are not aligned with our skills. And that's where I love you say you have to know yourself. What are you really good at that maybe is under your nose? And look very broadly at what your path is, because it's not just 2 or 3 things that we see people of color become successful at.
And it's not about your color. It really is about the way that you think. So we use color as a way to be programmed, socially constructed and designed to target you and marginalize your existence based on somebody saying you can't do it because of the color of your skin, and defining your existence. And so it really is about getting beyond that. That's an average program. You got a failed program, a failed system, which means, you're not even in the game. You got an average program, which means that most people are stuck in the average program. And then you have an advanced program. We're talking about the advanced program. The advanced program is, you know who you are, you know your purpose, you work on it despite the obstacles that you've had to face, right? You become good at what you do, you practice that, you create value in that, right? You have a vision about where you're going, you have a plan, you put it down, you organize it, and you become better than the average person. And so now we live in a world where people are looking for talent. Where's the best talent? Who's the smartest? Where are the skills? What can you actually do? I don't want to hear about your degree. I don't want to hear about, woe is me. I don't want to hear about your victimization. What I want to hear about is, can you become a producer? Can you produce? Can you become a self-directed learner? Can you become a lifelong learner? Do I have to tell you everything to do? Do I have to tell you what time to come in? Do you have any good habits? What are you able to do that's going to allow you to create value for the organization that you're working with? So the value that you give yourself, it's all about self. The value that you give yourself is the value the world gives you. The world sees you as you see yourself. So it's all about how you change perspective, regardless of your circumstances or your obstacles or where you grew up or what your situation was. How do you begin to change your thinking, right? So you can be competitive in a global marketplace.
One of the things you talk about in the book is self-managing your time well, because there's only so many hours in the day, and time is such an important asset. So can you talk about that? Because I think, again, this is a moment where people feel like time is just like lost.
Well, we're talking about skills. You need skills today. Time management is a skill. Everybody's got 24 hours, so that makes everybody equal. The question is, how do you leverage your 24 hours? Vision is a skill. Determination and perseverance, those are skills. Building relationships with people, those are skills. Organizing your life around things that you love and care about, those are skills. Showing up on time, those are skills. And so you're looking at skill building, as a way to organize all of the skills that are relevant to performing at the highest possible level. And then once you are able to focus in on your core base and build from the inside out, you're developing these small steps, and you're creating layers and layers and layers of opportunity. Based on what? Based on, number one, being positive, based on changing the energy around from negative to positive, based on being the best person you could possibly be. Then you start off with self-leadership as the foundation for that, and then you move into a leadership position because you can lead yourself and we can depend and count on you.
Brenda.
That's amazing. And I definitely think that self-love and all of this is incredibly, incredibly important. And my question is, what tips would you give for the young people that are hearing all these negative things coming at them, about part of their identities? What advice would you give to kind of block that out and really say, I love myself in the entirety? And how do you kind of take that first step and continue to grow? Because it's a lifelong process, How do you kind of take that first step to blocking everything out and really focusing on yourself?
Stop letting people define your existence. Stop letting people control your social economic development. Stop letting people define how much money you're worth or what your value is. Stop letting people take over and control your life. And so this iPhone, you know, in a lot of ways is controlling your life. It's the greatest tool in the world if you understand how to take the information and download it and make it relevant to what your purpose is in life and what you love in your life and what you care about. It's great for organizing content. You know, it's not that great if it defines your whole day. If all you do at the end of the day is you're just watching this and you're playing with this and you're sending messages all over the place and you haven't accomplished anything and you haven't raised your social economic development, you haven't been more entrepreneurial and you're not creating more value and you don't even know how the world works. And so the ability to be able to not to have the world control you, because the world's going to try to control you to keep you powerless, to make sure that you can be marginalized so that you don't self-actualize, so you don't take control of your own existence, so you don't raise your family, so you can't take care of yourself, so you're helpless, and now you have to depend on other people to define what your job is going to look like and how much money you're going to make and what are your opportunities. And so the 1% of the people who really, really make it, create success, they take control of their own development. They don't let anybody think for themselves. They understand how capitalism works, how the world works. They do the research that's necessary, and they utilize the global marketplace to create opportunities for themselves and their family. And so you've got to be able to understand that you cannot let anybody define you, because whoever you let define you will always define you as less than them.
I mean, you talk a lot in the book about obstacles, and I think that that's a good conversation, because let's face it, we don't just figure all this out. Life it's a process. I always say we're not a baked cake. We're always in process and growing and all that. But obstacles arrive to all of us many, 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 many times in life. You have to fail a lot in life. So you talk a lot in the book about dealing with obstacles. How do you deal with obstacles?
Well, you have to have a bigger vision. You know, your vision has to guide you beyond the obstacles. I mean, you're going to have obstacles. You're going to even fail in a lot of cases. You're going to fall down. You have to keep getting back up. Vision allows you to see beyond yourself. It's like, you know, where am I going? You know, where are the opportunities? And so I'm in the education business, my vision is worldwide. What does that look like? That's a big old structure. And so it allows me to look at all of the opportunities, all of the resources, organize the resources around what I do. So I'm in the education business. I'm creating courses. I'm doing, you know, live training, speaking. I have 12 books. I have lots of content. So it gives me a framework that allows me to figure out how to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Am I going to always be right? No. Am I going to keep going? Absolutely. Why? Because I have a vision bigger than my circumstances. I'm not going back. I'm going forward based on what I'm creating. And then I have to lay out a plan. And then I have to organize a value system around that. And then I have to be able to overcome the barriers to success. And then I have to be able to build a dream team. I got to be able to organize information. I got to be able to create consistency around all of that. So for me, it's being able to certainly be able to use all of those principles I just talked about to be able to self-actualize my own potential.
You talk a lot about self-actualization as
Can you actually see me? I hit a wrong button here. Can you actually see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, good. I'll keep talking.
So I want to talk about this concept of self-actualization. By the way, I love the word actualize because in Spanish, it's a great word, actualizarse, which really means like you get to the point where you go, I'm good. I'm really good, you know? And I love that. And you talk a lot about that as the goal. Can you, in your book, you define what it is to be self-actualized? And I think it's very beautiful how you describe it.
Well, self-actualization is the highest level of development. I mean, Maslow, you talked about, you know, making sure that we can satisfy a certain amount of needs, you know, security, food, shelter, all of those things. The highest level is self-actualization, which nobody tells you about. Mm-hmm. You know, we're just doing the same thing over and over. We're basically working We probably have no more in the end than we had in the beginning. And so how many times do you get a chance to work on self? I mean, I'm working on self. First of all, it's not even set up for you to work on self, because when you start working on self, you start thinking for yourself, you start creating new ideas, you start understanding the value of technology and how to make it relevant to your development. You start to stand out. You start to raise your social economic opportunities. You start to empower your family. You start to, travel all over the place. You have all these ideas. You can imagine things happening, and then you can actually produce it and make it happen. And so self-actualization is a gift, which is what I actually teach. I teach you how to organize yourself, and then focus on internal development to the point where internal becomes external based on who you are. Do you know who you are? It's the greatest gift in the world, because now you can focus, whatever you focus on expands, on expanding your talents and your skills, and then sharing those skills and talents with the world that you live in. So it becomes more of a servant leadership program. So you can break the cycle and help everybody else leave home, understand how it works, organize the world, take your talents and gifts back to where you came from, empower your own people, your family, and your own culture.
I love that. And then in the book you say, self-actualization is the ultimate fulfilling your purpose in this life. And I think, just to be fair, as Brenda said, so many times we come from families that are in survival mode, right? And they don't even have the privilege of thinking that way. And so I think of it too, as when I read it in your book, as like leadership in your own family, for starters, of like allowing yourself to not feel selfish for even thinking that way, because that's how we get beyond the survival mode that we come from sometimes. Brenda, how do you feel about that?
I think that's so true. And I feel like sometimes we do feel sometimes a little ashamed, or even, like anger at ourselves for thinking that way. But we should take all these things that we're learning and passing it down to our families. So many of them are like you said, in survival mode, and they've been like that for so many years in this country. And coming to a brand new country, so many of them, at least for my family, just went straight into survival mode. And there's so many things out there that they've missed, because they just haven't had the chance to do it. And now they have me, that I'm in these rooms, I'm in these conversations, and I'm just so excited to be here and be able to pass this down to the older generations that haven't had the opportunity or the privilege to be here where I am today.
Well, you have all of these gifts and talents. I mean, you have the same opportunity. The process of success is the same. If I keep you from getting the information, if you don't have the information and knowledge, you don't know how to put it together. Mm-hmm. So content, having the right content and information, I read and read every single day. I'm reading, looking for what? Looking for how to get the right information so I can put the pieces of the puzzle together, so I can leverage technology as a way to download content anywhere in the global marketplace.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like, everybody listening, that it's so wonderful to hear you, Stedman, and be coached, and that we get to hear. I'm like you. I'm obsessed with to hear people that are smarter than me, and I just love it. And I think, again, we don't realize. My son always says this to me, and it really touched me, because I used to say, I almost felt guilty getting coached by people or spending money on myself for this stuff. And he would say to me, Mom, Kobe had, he was obsessed with Kobe. Kobe has 8 coaches, and we don't realize that people in the world that do great things can't do it alone. They need help. And the fact that we're here for all of you, just know that you deserve to be coached, and you deserve to learn, and you deserve to grow. And so I'm so glad that we get to hear you, Stedman, coach us and take everything that you're absorbing and giving it to us.
Thank you.
What I know this for sure. Everybody is capable of doing whatever they want to do, because the process of success is the same for everybody. It's how do you think? How do you feel about yourself? How are you? What is your organizational program for yourself? Are you organized? What do your habits look like? What's your routine look like? Are you consistent? And especially if you're young, if you're a young person, it took me a long time to get this. I didn't wake up till I was about 40 years of age, 36 or 40 years of age before I realized, oh, it's not about race. People all over the world are making things happen because they know how to get things done. They know how it works. And so when you are a young person and you have wow, you've got 80 years ahead of you. You got to develop a process of continuous improvement every day where you're better today than you were yesterday, but you got to be able to grow as opposed to being in that fixed mindset of doing the same thing over and over. And, you're just working and working and working and not going anywhere. You're not thinking, you're not developing, you're not building, you're not creating,
Stagnated.
and you become a victim and you say, woe is me. And so the ability to be able to self-actualize your potential is the same for you as it is for me. The difference is that you may not have the information, which is why we're doing this program.
Yes, thank you so much, Stedman and Nelly, for being our coaches, for being here and teaching us so much. And I know that the audience has so many questions for you guys. They have so many advice that they want to hear from you guys. So without further ado, we definitely want to get to them. And our first question is actually going to be from John Gates. Hi, John. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello, how are you?
Hi.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry. My thing just
No
switched
worries.
over. My apologies. Okay. Start my video. Hello.
Hello.
Can you guys hear me? How are you?
Good.
You guys have done such a phenomenal job. I have truly enjoyed you guys' discussion. It's really been a reflection for me as I have embarked on my own journeys when it comes to finding myself and finding my identity. One of the things, Stedman, you were talking about being a basketball player when you were younger, as I was a basketball player too, and that's kind of what helped me get to where I am today. I played basketball. I was a power forward in high school. So that was really cool. I smiled when you were talking about that. Um, my question is, as I run a nonprofit called Trendsetters, which essentially is a speaker series for young people. As we reflect on the past 6 months, there has been a civil rights movement creating a shift in America as we speak. How would you suggest ensuring conversations on diversity, equity, and inclusion continue and don't just rely on those who are being marginalized to lead these discussions?
I go back to self. I go back to self-made, self-mastery, self-empowerment, self-discipline, self-efficacy. Work on yourself and spend time on yourself. And you can't help anybody else until you first help yourself. And so I would be a master in self-development. And I would read everything I could get my hands on. I want to figure out what my purpose is going to be in life and what I love to do, so that you can be a contributing member to our society and to your family and to your community and to your country and to the global marketplace today, because you're smarter. I mean, I think you're smarter. Young people are smarter today than we were, and you certainly have more opportunity. And so you have to think bigger, you have to be more creative, but you also have to start with small steps. And you also have to be able to have the wisdom. Wisdom is not just going to school, having a degree, or having access to a smartphone and thinking that you're all of that. Wisdom is knowing what decisions you need to make. Wisdom is knowing what not to do. Wisdom is having access to a variety of people that will give you the information when you need it. So it saves you years and years of sometimes making the wrong decision and pain and trauma that you didn't have to go through, because you're able to get the information first to figure out what is the process for my success, and how do I customize a program specifically designed for me, that satisfies my needs and that makes me happy, and so that I'm on the right track, and I'm wasting 10 years on this project and program, and really I'm not building anything because I'm all over the place. I keep breaking the mold. and I'm confused because you don't have anybody to help you and you don't understand the process of how it works.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate you for your answer.
Thank you, John, and congratulations. You are doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
So our next question is from an anonymous attendee. Actually, unfortunately, they didn't type in their name. But the question is, how fluid do you think identity is, especially in adolescence? How much agency do you think we as individuals have to shape our identities? And what do you think determines that? Beautiful question.
Good question.
Well, certainly, if you learn this, if you learn how to learn, okay, you can create whatever you want. And so for me, learning how to learn right now, you're not learning anything. You just go to school, you memorize, you take tests, repeat the information back 2 weeks later, you forget the information.
That's right.
It's not even set up for you to be empowered. So how can you possibly develop a self-identity when the information that you're getting every single day, you lose? You forget about it. It's gone. And then you got 50,000 thoughts, you're confused. You got so much information, you're inundated by information that you don't know how to apply the information to growing your life every day. So it's called growth, okay? It's called building the foundation for thinking and developing and creating cognitive ability, right? To organize information that's relevant to empowering you so that you can perform at the highest possible level, right? And be the best athlete, be the best student, be the best teacher, be the best parent, based on having access to content that's specifically relevant to your skill set so that you can be good at what you do. And then you're putting all of that together, right? To put the pieces of the puzzle together to paint the picture. The sooner you understand that, the sooner you're able to paint 50 different pictures, right? That make up basically who you are. And that's really applied to the core of who you are as a person.
And I think, Stedman, you talk in the book about critical thinking too. Like, I think we're being fed so much information and very specific in specific areas that sometimes we just regurgitate what we're hearing and we've stopped thinking, is this really good for me? Is this really what's going to help me? So that critical thinking component, always asking questions about what you're taking in.
What are you focused on? What are you working on? You know, you can only have one thought at a time. So focus is a huge thing. So you got to be very clear and have clarity on where you're going. What does that look like? What's the end in mind, as Covey talks about? And so the vision is very important in terms of goal setting and writing down things and then getting things done. Can you actually execute it? Can you make stuff happen? Can you set a goal and make the goal happen? And then how many goals could you possibly set to achieve your vision? And so it is a process for performing at a higher level. It's a process for excellence. There's a process for achievement. There is a process for success. And once you understand that, you apply that same process to everything that you do.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful answer. Our next question is from Jeremiah Grant Jr. And the question is, how can I become better at building relationships with people?
Well, you become better at building relationships with people because you make other people feel good about themselves. And people are only interested in themselves. So, you know, if you are satisfied with yourself, you don't need to have the power. That's why humility is so wonderful when you find your purpose and find out what you love and what you care about, because you don't care about anybody else. You don't care how other people make you feel, or you don't care about what they might say to you, or you don't care about them hating you, because you love so much what you do, and you're so involved in your own development, and you want to be the best person you can be. And then if you can understand that process of how to do that with one thing, imagine organizing 20 things that you love. Imagine being able to utilize the resources of the world and apply those resources to your development so that you're empowered every single day. And then you don't need the ego. You don't need to feel like I'm all of this and I'm all of that. And I need the external world to define my existence and make me feel good. I don't need your validation. So you're not trying to be validated by the external world, asking people, for permission to exist. And asking them, am I okay? Am I all right? Am I good enough? Because you know it for yourself. That's where the confidence comes from. That's where the value comes from. That's where the belief comes from. You got to believe in yourself based on an internal processes that allow you to feel good about who you are and where you're going and how you're going to get there.
So true. Thank you. Our next question is, can you share a story of a major growth moment in your lives that really changed the way that you think about leadership? And this is for both Nelly and Stedman.
Mm-hmm.
Nelly, you want to go? I know I've dominated it pretty good.
No, please, you go first and then I'll go.
Well, I grew up in this kind of all-black town surrounded by White County, where they said nothing ever good comes out of Whitesboro. We had a lot of good that came out of Whitesboro. I'm, being teased every day, so I'm about 13 or 14 years of age. I've got low self-esteem, but lack of confidence in myself. Only thing that's saving me, I'm angry. I'm an angry person. I'm negative all the time. The only thing that's saving me from destroying myself basically is basketball. And so basketball was kind of my way out. In this small town, we had one store. The guy that owns the store, his name was Mr. T. I never will forget this story. His name was Mr. T.A. So we used to hang out at Mr. T.A.'s all the time. And I'm down there one Saturday afternoon and I'm bragging. I'm a bragger. I'm bragging to everybody. I'm going to college. I'm going to college. I knew I was going to go to college because I was getting all these scholarship offers. So Mr. T.A. is down behind the counter one Saturday morning. I look behind the counter, see him, I go up to him, and this is my time to brag to Mr. T.A. And I said to Mr. T.A., Mr. T.A., guess what? I'm going to college. And I'm so happy. I'm thinking she's going to say, son, we are so happy for you. You're going to college. You got out of this town. He looks at me and I look at him and I never will forget that look. He says to me, you're not going to no college. Your family's too stupid and you're too dumb. And I was really taken back by that. I was hurt for a long time. And I couldn't believe that Mr. T.A., who I looked up to, who owned the only store in our town, says to me, you're not going to no college, your family's too stupid and you're too dumb. I was walking down the street one day, distinctly remember it. I stopped in my tracks and I said to myself, I'm going to fix you, Mr. T.A. I'm going to get you back. I'm going to college and I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to bring it back to you and I'm going to show you that I'm somebody. Went to college and played ball and got a scholarship and all of that. And I remember nights we come in at 11 o'clock at night from a road trip and everybody would go to bed and throw their bags down and jump in bed because we were tired. I'd stay up all night long study. I'd stay up all night long studying for that test I had the next day. I didn't care about basketball. Only thing I cared about is I had to get that degree and bring it back and show Mr. T.A. Mr. T.A., I'm somebody. And so that was a defining moment in my life. And the only really reason I was able to finish college is that I had to get that degree and take it back and show Mr. T.A. that I was somebody. I took it back one day when I was in town, had my degree in my pocket, and I walked into the store and Mr. T.A. was so happy, was so glad to see me that I couldn't show him or tell him about I got that degree, and I didn't really feel like making him feel bad because he was so glad to see me, and I realized I didn't have to do it anyway. So that was a defining moment in my life.
Story. That's a great story. I think my defining moment is a little different in that I was working as a reporter in Boston, and I thought I was going to grow up to be Diane Sawyer or somebody like that. That's the only person that I knew that that I looked up to. And I interviewed a producer who's a very big producer in Hollywood, and he and his partner said to me, we just bought the first Spanish TV station in New York. Do you want to come and work for us? And they kind of were interviewing me. And, you want to work in management running this little station. And I thought to myself, ew, I don't want to do anything Latino. Disgusting. That reminded me of my parents. And it was kind of like, I felt like I was going backwards. I was at CBS in Boston and I'm going to go. And the guy turns to me and he goes, young lady, you're Latina and you speak Spanish, right? And he goes, do you not know that the Latino market is going to be a multi-billion-dollar market? And I'm offering you to be employee one of what's going to be a multi-billion-dollar business. And I thought to myself, this guy seems much smarter to me than me. And in that moment, instead of going for my ego, and I think, I don't know that my kid would make the same decision. Instead of going for my ego, which was to be a reporter and be on camera, I, in that moment, thought, I want to be around these two people that are smarter than me. And I became employee one of what is now Telemundo. So imagine if somebody offered you to be employee one of Google, where you would be today. And I just say that to all of you because I think also we're not talking about emerging businesses, emerging markets, emerging things. And sometimes when we come from the backgrounds we come from, we want the prestige of something that makes us feel better about us. And there is no one that's going to save us, no company that's going to save us. We have to go inward and find the trophies inside of us. It's what Stedman was saying. And in that moment, I made the best life decision of my life. And I was in an emerging field that became big, and I was there early in the game. Something to think about.
Beautiful.
Definitely
So
amazing
good.
advice from the both of you. We're actually going to go to our last Q&A question. And this question is coming from Aviana Ranson.
Hi. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Wonderful end session. I really enjoyed myself. My question is, what are some characteristics a person would need in order to have a long-lasting success?
Along, what was that?
Long-lasting success.
Go ahead, Nelly, go ahead.
No, she's saying long-lasting success. Well, I think this is right out of your book.
Okay. Well, I would start. You got to have a purpose, and you got to focus on love. You got to be able to change the energy around. And so, my transformation is always love. The foundation of my existence is negative. That means I look at the glass. I have a tendency to look at the glass half empty before I look at it half full. So if I know that, right, and negativity is all in your subconscious, your subconscious is who you are. Your consciousness is what we're doing right now. You're conscious of what's happening. I have to change my subconscious. So I got to work on my old habits, my old history, my old thinking. That doesn't go away. And so success is about making the right decisions, but it's also about changing the energy around. So changing the energy around is based on being positive and focusing on what you can do as opposed to what you can't do, which is really related to your self-esteem and your belief system about yourself. The law of attraction says whatever you put out, you get back. So when you put out negative energy, you get back negative energy. If you put out positive energy, you put out positive energy. So the question is, that's an easy statement I just made. But the question is can you do it? Can you be positive when you're negative during the time that you're negative? Can you not yell at folks? Can you not feel bad about situations? Can you change your energy around? Can you change your thinking around so that you change your feelings and then you change the results? It's not a easy thing to do when you're stuck in your historical background and your baggage. I often say you're not your circumstances, you are your possibilities. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have to keep reading and learning and developing. And success takes a long time. Mm-hmm. It takes trial and error. It takes working on yourself. It takes organizing information, and it takes understanding what's possible for you and where you're going. You got to be really clear on who you are, where you're going, and then the how-to. How are you going to get there? That's why education is so important. That's why school is so important, because it's part of the how-to. It's not the only thing. But if you can't read, if you don't have the willpower, if you don't have the ability to communicate properly, mm-hmm. if you're not working on all of those things, you're not going to be competitive in the marketplace today.
And you know what? I think, and you say this in your book too, Stedman, that I always say my favorite word in the English language is completion. I think a lot of people have great ideas in their mind, and life is about taking those big ideas and making baby steps every day and completing them. And that's why when you said, Stedman, see how many things you can finish and complete. I mean, I tell people in my office, go become a notary public. Go do little things that you can complete in a day, a week, 2 weeks, because you start completing things and then you start building these blocks of feeling good about yourself. And self-esteem is built block by block. And success comes from self-esteem and feeling that you can do it. And so I would say to you, push yourself to tell yourself you're going to complete everything you begin. And that may mean starting with little things. I went back to school in the middle of my life because my son said, I hate school when he was 8 years old, and I don't want to go to college. You hadn't finished college. And I went back and I finished and I got a master's and a doctorate. And now my son's in college, and because he saw me do it. And I think that's the key to life, is to begin things and complete them. Begin things and complete them. And you say that in your book.
Well, I want to break out of my history. I'm not going back to that historical framework. I'm going to try to bring the good stuff I was taught by my parents forward and leave the bad stuff behind. And so your ability to be able to break the cycle, it's going to be based on how do you think? What's your thinking like? Mm-hmm. And so I was told early on in my life, Oprah used to say, what your thinking's on. You got bad thinking. And so how do you change your thinking? Because I'm thinking I'm doing the best I can do. That's not good enough. Especially, in the places we go and things that we're doing, your thinking needs to change. The only way I could change my thinking was I had to be a reader. I had to learn things differently. I had to educate myself. I had to be a self-directed learner. So now I'm able to go anywhere I want to go because I understand there is a process for success. The beauty of this is everybody looking at this is intelligent. Everybody here looking at this has the opportunity. Everybody looking at this has the intellect and the capabilities and you have the talent and you have the skills. You got to go internally to find where it is. You got to develop it. You got to mold it. You got to pull it out. You got to have it become something. And then once you find it and you're happy about it and you love it, it allows you to consistently do something over and over and build it. And you're not going to get tired because when you find what you love and care about, you never work a day in your life.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much to the both of you for giving us such amazing advice, so much wisdom. We definitely have so much to work on, so many great tips that you guys gave us. And it came at a perfect time. Winter break is, almost here for some of us. So I think it's a perfect time for us to really start taking these things that you guys said to us and really setting them into action. So thank you for just everything. It was amazing talking to you. And thank you to the audience for all of those amazing questions. You guys were fantastic. And unfortunately, we're out of time for the Q&A session. But before the session is over, Nelly and Stedman, we have a special section. So it is the lightning round game. So what's going to happen is I'm going to say 9 questions. They're going to go really quick, back to back. They're not hard questions. They're fairly simple. Just answer them as quickly as you can, and then we'll go right to the next one. Okay, guys?
Yep.
Are you guys ready? We're going to start with a simple one. Okay. What is your favorite ice cream?
Chocolate.
Bud pecan.
If you could live on a different planet, which one would it be?
Mars.
The moon.
What food could you eat for the rest of your life?
Sushi.
Human food.
If you could reincarnate as any animal, what animal would it be?
Lion.
Oh, I don't know. That's a good one. A wolf.
Wolf. I love it. What is your favorite season?
Summer.
All.
If you could pick a superpower, what would it be?
A superpower?
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge.
Wisdom.
That's a good one.
Total wisdom.
Beautiful.
Would you rather speak every language in the world or be able to speak to animals?
Every language in the world.
Stedman?
Say it again.
If you could, which one would you rather? Being able to speak every language in the world or being able to speak and communicate with animals?
Be able to speak every language in the world.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver do you think you are?
2.
9.
Would your partners rate you the same?
Totally.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a younger you?
Read. Read more.
To be congruent, that who you are on the outside is the same as who you are on the inside.
Thank you both so much. And do you have any parting words that you want to give to the young people tuning in?
I do.
Go for it.
One is all you do is work on yourself every single day. Work on you. So the more you have, the more you can give.
And I'm going to leave you with the thought from my book, which is I want you all to know and that you can be abundant. I think that sometimes we come from cultures where we think having money is a bad thing. And I think that, as Stedman said in the beginning, it is the hero's journey. We're here to do our work and then come back to our communities and our families and change them. And we can't do that also if we don't become abundant. And I think that that's important. So that's why I talk so much about self-made and wealth building and feeling that it's possible for all of us to do that.
I have one other thing. Let's give Brenda a round of applause. You did a fantastic job. You were so good. Thank you so much. You were excellent.
And thank you, Stedman. Thank you for
Such an honor.
helping us and coaching us. And I loved reading your book.
Thank you so much, Nelly. Thank you for who you are. You're so special.
Thank you both for being here, for coaching us, for giving us such amazing, amazing advice, for your time, for your wisdom. And we really, from the bottom of our hearts, we wish you a safe and a healthy winter. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
See
you to the
y'all.
audience. Thank you guys so
All right.
much.
Thank you, everybody, to put this together. Mike and Gina and all y'all. And
Brad, thank
everybody.
you.
Brad, thank you so much, everybody.
So to the audience, everyone who attended today has been entered into a raffle to win a copy of these books, which are amazing. You will be contacted by the Aspen Institute for your mailing address if you do win. We really would love to hear you guys' feedback. There's going to be a short survey. The QR code is on the screen. We want to know what topics you guys want to hear, what speakers, what formats, what do you guys want to see in the future? You can access it via QR code, or you can also see it in the email that's going to be sent after this program. A recording of the session will also be posted for use, and resources on how to continue the conversation are also available via our website. We will be back in 2021 with more sessions of Youth Lead Now. Until then, I hope you all continue to develop your identity leadership, stay safe and stay healthy, and always remember that you are not your circumstances, you are your possibilities, as Stedman said. Thank you all so much. It's been amazing. Love you guys so much. Thank you.